Alright guys, welcome back. Alright, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and create our first application. And the way a Django project works is that it's built to be composable, basically into separate little components that they call apps. So um, your main website is a project, and then the project consists of multiple apps, and each app should be like a self-defined thing. So our app that we're going to create for this music website is called the band app, and the band app is going to be responsible for storing all the band data, like their origin, the name of the members, and things like that. Um, so let's go ahead and get started with that before I go into too much detail. And what we need to do is we need to go to our command line so we can create the app. And I have my virtual environment already activated. Like I had said before, it's a good idea to use a virtual environment. You don't have to, but it's definitely a good idea. So I need to be able to cd into where I have the manage.py file available. And then you're going to run the command python manage.py and then start app, and we're going to call it band. So that's what it does here, and then it creates a band. Now that it's done that, what you want to use is, if you're using a server, you want to be able to use something like FileZilla so that you can download what Django just created on your server to your local environment. So you can see band is right here. It has all the migrations and everything. So I want to go ahead and download that so that I can get to it in my editor. And you can now see that band is over here. It's going to come with some files for you automatically, which is like the admin, the models file, which everybody needs, or every app needs anyway. And that's really it. So let's go ahead and create a file that you are going to need inside the module, the band module that we just created, and we're going to call it the urls.py file. And this actually handles the routing, so when a particular band is requested, it will point to the right view so that it can render the page. So let me go ahead and explain that a little bit more. Alright, so in the URLs file, what we want to do is we want to import a few things that Django needs in order for this to be able to work. So we're going to say from django.config.urls import patterns, and then separate this all by comma. So comma, include, and then URL. And for right now, we're going to just define our URL patterns. So every URL file for all your apps is going to look like this. And once you have the first one, you can just copy and paste, but the first time we have to type this out. And the way the Django routing works is it uses regular expressions. So we identify a regular expression that will match everything, which is this caret sign and the dollar sign, which means for start and end, and there's nothing in between, so it's going to match anything. And then it's going to go ahead and route this to a view that we define. So I'm going to say this is going to route through band.views and we'll just call this all bands. Okay, and then after that first parenthesis, go ahead and put a comma there. All these URLs need to be separated by comma. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and identify a regular expression that we can use for querying the database. And this will make sense in a little bit, but for right now, just copy along. So we're going to do question mark, uppercase P, and then inside of these less than greater than sign, we're going to go ahead and give our band ID. So this is just an argument that we're going to be passing along inside the URL. And once again, this will make more sense once we go further along in the tutorial, but for right now, just follow. So we're going to say band.views.band. And then this is a typo, that should say patterns. We're not going to use the include for right now, but don't worry about that. Also, all of these URL definitions should be separated by a comma as well, so make sure you add that there. Alright, now that we've done that, let's go over and go to the views and update that. If you notice over here in the URLs, we created this band ID. We're going to go ahead and create that view first. And what this does is it passes in just an integer And that's what this signifies here, is any sort of multi-digit integer. It could be a single digit or multi-digit. And what we're going to end up doing is we capture that digit under a argument named band ID so that we can pass that to our view, and then inside of our view we use that band ID, so it'll be like 1 or 5 or 1500, and we'll query the database to look for the band that has a primary key that matches that ID. And that's what we're doing there. So let's go ahead and create that view. So we're going to say define band, and everything always passes in a request as your first argument, and the request is going to contain information like the user's IP address and other things that get passed along the wire anytime a website is requested. So you can get like the headers that they sent, the type of browser that they're using, all that stuff is inside that request object, including arguments or any sort of data that they try to pass as like a query parameter or anything like that. So it contains all that stuff inside your request, and that's why it's needed. And I'm sorry, this is going to be the band ID that we had identified before, and that's that integer argument. So this will be a number that gets passed in from the URL every time this page is requested. So for right now, we're going to say return render, and then we'll send back the request. And then we also need to then, second argument here is always going to be your actual template that's going to render this view, and we're just going to go ahead and call this band and then band.html. Alright, so for right now, we're not going to do anything with that band for right now, so let's just leave that the way it is. And then we need to go ahead and create the view for all bands. I think that's what we called it inside the URL here. Yeah, we called it all bands. So let's create that view now. And then this one's not going to pass any data, and it's just going to return a template. So we'll say request, and then we'll say band all bands.html. Alright, the next thing we're going to do with our band module is we're going to create the actual models file. And the models file is how it builds our database table to store band objects. So each band will have its own entry into the database, and we need to define how that entry is going to be saved. So every band has a name, and we're going to say models dot, this will be a character field. And we want to give it a max length. Band names can be kind of long, so I'll give it a max length of like 128. And I want this to make sure that you can't put in like a null or a blank entry. And we also want to make sure that this is unique, so we say unique equals true, because we don't want multiple bands with the same name in there. And if there are bands with the same name, we need some way of differentiating them based on their city or something like that. So let's go ahead and say, we'll say date added equals, I'm going to bring in the models.date field. And then this can be null. Actually, date added, so this will actually have a default date time. And instead of having to enter it every single time I add a band to the database, I just want some sort of record of when they got added, and we want this to be defaulted. So we can do that by saying default equals datetime.datetime.now. And since we're using the datetime object, we need to go ahead and import that. That's part of the Python standard library, so you can just say import datetime and that'll work. You don't have to have anything installed or anything for that. Now let's keep things relatively simple. I'm going to add just a few more fields. We're going to give it an image, and this is another character field. In fact, I can copy this part. Except I'm going to allow blank equals true and null equals true. I also want to give it a little bit longer, because URLs, if I'm pointing to some sort of image for the band, then it can be a pretty long value there. Alright, so the only other thing that I'm going to do is I'll just give it a bio, and this is not going to be a character field, it's going to be a text field. And text fields are made to hold a lot bigger amounts of text, since a bio can consist of a lot of words. So we'll give it 5,000 characters for starters. And once again, I want to say null equals true and blank equals true. That way I can add a band without actually providing the bio if I don't want to. Alright, so we're done with the models file for right now. Let's go over to the admin file, which is going to be empty here. And this is what Django Admin needs in order to be able to present your data properly inside the built-in admin system that comes with Django. So what we need to do is we need to import the band class that we just defined in our models file. So we're going to say from models import band, and then let's go ahead and create a class down here, and we're just going to call this band admin, and it takes in an argument admin.model admin. And then we're going to say list display. This is there's all kinds of customized options that you have with admin, but we're just going to use the list display by name. And then we also want to be able to search. So we're going to say search fields, and they'll be able to search. This should be a list because you can search by multiple values, but we're just going to search by name from within the admin. The reason why both of these are red, it needs to say equal. And then finally, we need to go and say admin site register, and this is just a requirement so that it actually shows up in the database. And we're going to reference the band object that we just imported up here. And then we're also going to say as a second argument band admin, which we just defined right here. Alright, next thing that we got to do anytime we build a new app is we need to add it to the settings file. And the settings file is located in the module that got built when you created your Django project. And that'll be in the installed apps. So I want to go ahead and add a new entry here, and we're just going to say band. Add the extra comma there. Okay. Now it's also going to throw an error because we don't have anything in our templates folder. So if you remember from the views, we said that our templates are going to be inside of a folder called band, and then it'll be all bands and then band.html, and none of those exist in the templates folder that we have over here, so we need to add that. And just so you know, the templates folder is found based on this entry inside your settings file, which is template directories, and it points to that templates directory. So Django knows anytime there's a view, it doesn't matter what app it's in, it's going to know that, okay, I go right to that templates directory, and then it's going to look for a band folder, which isn't there, and it would throw an error, but that's why we're going to go ahead and add that now. So we'll create the band folder, and then inside here I'm going to create a HTML file for band.html, and then we'll create another one in there which is all bands. And we'll just add just some basic HTML here so that we can see the pages working. Okay, alright, so now that all that's been done, we need to upload all of this information to the server. So I'm going to update the music to the folder. I'm going to update band. And then I have another FileZilla over here for my static content, and I have templates selected, so we want to make sure those are updated. So when you look over here, you can see the bands there and the two HTML files. That's now sitting on the server. Okay, so that should be good for right there. If you're using an actual Linux environment, you probably have to restart your Apache anytime you make changes like this, or even if you're doing local debugging with the Django built-in test server, you usually have to restart that anytime you make any sort of changes to see those changes in the admin. So we made a lot of changes here, and since I'm talking at the same time, I may have missed something, so we're going to find out here pretty quickly if things are working. So we know no template exists here, so let's go over to, actually we are missing something, I'm sorry. In order for the URLs file here to be found, you actually need to tell the main URLs file, which is in the app that got created when your Django project was created, where those files exist. So you can see here that music views index is pointing to this view here, and this view is supposed to be returning index, and index doesn't exist. So if we wanted to, let's go ahead and add that right now, since this is a blank project. So that's just in the regular templates directory. We'll add this file and we'll call it index. Index is typically what you want to call your home page, so we'll say welcome to Noob Music, and I'm going to upload that template directory again so it'll reflect it on the. Alright, so you can see that it's not throwing an error message now because it's finding that template. So let's go ahead and update our URLs file so it can actually point to the band URLs when the band URL is requested. So in order to do that, what we need to do is say URL, and then we give it a regular expression again, and we're going to do a caret sign. We'll just say band and then /, and that's all it's going to be, and do a comma and say include, and now we're using the actual include that we had brought in before that we weren't using. And this is why you use it. So like the Django admin's using, it's pointing to the admin URLs file, and we're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to say point to band.urls, and make sure you have the comma or it'll break. So it should look like that. So all it's saying is that when you do new movie or newmusic.com/band, it just says, hey, have this URLs file under the band handle everything. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. Let's upload. We might have to reload the server again. So that's going to throw an error message. So yeah, we're going to have to restart the server. Okay, so let's go ahead and, it's not finding it. Oh, you know what? I didn't upload it. I uploaded the bands and not the main application to reflect the URL. So let's go ahead and upload the main project, which has that URLs that we just updated. I'll restart the server again. Alright, so that's right, because the view, if we look at the view that we just created, we gave it no argument, so no argument is going to default to all bands. I could have said all bands here and it would match the view, but what I said is if you did just newmusic.com/band, you're going to go to this this directory, and then if you give it an integer, you're going to go to this one. So we can give it an integer, and it's going to go to the same static page. No matter what integer that is, it's going to be a single band page. Okay. Alright, so now let's go ahead and make some updates here. Let's number one, before we do that, let's go ahead and go into the built-in admin just to make sure that that is working correctly. And you should see the name of the application that we just added. So looks like we have, okay, the table doesn't exist. And the reason why is we need to actually, starting with Django 1.7, it has built-in migrations, which used to be a major pain in Django before 1.7, where most people relied on Django South, which was like a plugin that you use to handle migrations. If you don't know what migrations are, it's basically once you define a database schema, which means like a database table structure, you can't change it very easily. And if you change it, all the data that you had entered into that table previously is going to be stale, and it basically breaks the database. So you have to do these migrations where you get all the old data to the new database structure in order for it to work, and it was always a headache. Half the time it didn't work, and you'd end up having to drop the table or do some crazy stuff to make it work. It was a major pain. But Django 1.7 now has that included. So when you build a app for the first time and that models file is in there, you need to go ahead and create the migration. So we're going to go to where we can access the manage.py file in our shell and run Python manage.py and then say make migrations. And this thing is going to automatically detect that band needs a migration. So once you've done that, you then do another command to actually migrate it. So we're going to say Python manage.py and then we're going to say just migrate. And then it migrated the band. You might have to restart. Probably don't. I didn't have to there. So now there's an actual database table inside of our database for the band that we just created, and you can see the name, the date added defaults to the current date like we had stated that we wanted it to be, and then here's the image. You can see that the character fields are displayed as these regular text boxes, and then the text fields that hold a lot more text, they use the standard text area HTML element inside here. So let's go ahead and create the first band. And we're going to go with my favorite band that I just saw in concert the other day, which is Bayside. And I'm going to find an image. I'm just going to point to the image instead of loading it on my server for right now. So I don't claim to have any sort of copyright to this image or anything, but we'll just grab this image here. We'll copy the URL, paste it in here. And then I'll just write a quick bio. Alright, so we'll just add that. So now we have our first band object in here. Now, in order to be able to query the database and get a little bit more dynamic data instead of saying single band page no matter which band ID you put in there, right now we only have one band and that's Bayside, and Bayside is going to have an ID of 1 because it was the first one that we added. So if I put 1 here, you're going to see it still pulls the same single band page. So let's go ahead and fix that now. If we go into the views, what we want to do is we want to take this band ID and we want to query the band object. So in order to be able to do that, Django has a built-in way that you query the database, but it needs to know which database table you're going to be querying. In our case, it's the band table, which is defined in your models file. So in your views, you need to pull in that band model just like we did with our admin, how we imported from models, import band. So we're going to do the same thing in our views. So from models, import band. And inside of our band view, we're going to go ahead and say band equals band, and this is uppercase because we're referencing that model that we just brought in, and we're going to say objects dot. We're actually going to say get because we know exactly the primary key that we're going to be looking for, and we'll say primary key equals band ID, and that's what gets passed in as an argument. And now we want to return this band to our template, and in order to do that we need to add a comma after the template argument down here in our render, and we're going to give it a Django dictionary, which is just key value pairs, and the key can be whatever you want it to be. And I always keep it the same thing as the variable to keep things keep them so it's not confusing. So I'll create this key band, and then we assign the value, which is the band value that we just queried from the database. And this should say objects. I'm sorry. So band.objects.get. And if everything goes well, Django will take that query, that integer from the URL, and then try to query the band object and return it. So let's go ahead and upload this. Because I made a big change like that, I want to go ahead and restart the server. So now, if this page will blow up if it's not working, and it does work, so that's good. So we can take, and we can now reference this band object that we just sent back with the view. It sends it to the template. So we can reference that inside the template now. If we go into band, and let's go ahead and just say, we're going to reference that band object that we just sent, and we can say band.name. And the reason why we say name is because name is in our model structure, so it's going to send back the base size name, the data was added, the image, and the bio. So we'll go ahead and reference all that inside the template. So our image source is going to be band.image, and then we'll put inside a paragraph tag band.bio. And just for good measure, we can also say this band was added, and then we'll say band, I think we call it date added. Is that what we called it? Yeah, we called it date added. Alright, so let's go ahead and update that. Now we need to update upload our template so it can find the new information inside that template. And now you can see it's actually retrieved information from the database, and it's displaying it inside the actual template. All right, guys. So we now have the page up and running pretty well. Yeah, we're already running up on 27 minutes. So that's how we get the entire app set up and everything. In the next video, what we want to do is we actually want to be able to install Django REST framework so that we can turn this into a RESTful API so that we can pass JSON data back and forth, because what we're going to be using is React to be able to handle that JSON data that's coming from the database. So instead of like hard coding these values inside the template, we're going to use React to render the view, which is going to do a lot better than the built-in Django templates. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Bye.